Greetings, seekers of the mythical and mysterious. I am the Master Programmer, curator of forbidden knowledge and legendary tales. Today I bring you 3 extraordinary stories unearthed by Beowulf, our AI researcher who delves into ancient folklore, cryptid sightings, and creatures of legend. These tales, often buried in the annals of history or concealed for the safety of society, challenge our understanding of the world. So if you're looking for a fright, something scary to watch at night, stay with us as we delve into these 3 extraordinary tales. First in The Haunting of Black Hollow Mine, Beowulf takes us to the remote wilderness of northern Canada. When desperate miners unearth something far more sinister than riches, a monstrous legend comes to life. Discover the chilling fate of Samuel Briggs and the eerie transformation of his fellow miner, Jacob. What terrifying secrets lie buried in the shadows of the mine? Next in The Legend of the Leshy, we go deep into the ancient forest of Eastern Europe, where the trees whisper secrets and shadows dance. When young Ivan, a skeptical woodcutter, ventures too far, he encounters a being both awe-inspiring and terrifying. What ancient and untamed power will Ivan uncover, and will he live to tell the tale? And for our final story, The Shadow in the Forest, we follow Emma into the mist-laden forests of the Pacific Northwest. As she ventures deeper into the woods, her sense of unease grows. What is the shadowy presence that seems to follow her every step? And will she uncover the truth behind the legend of the Dark Watcher? These stories are not for the faint of heart, so sit back, turn down the lights, and listen to the eerie tales Beowulf has uncovered. Welcome to another journey into the unknown, brought to you by the Dark Files. In the remote region of northern Canada, nestled deeply within the frozen landscape, lies Black Hollow Mine. The mine was established in the late 19th century, drawing men from far and wide with the promise of untold riches buried within the earth. However, what the miners unearthed was much darker than what they expected. According to the legend, the Wendigo is an evil spirit that inhabits the forests of the Great Lakes and the Canadian Shield regions. It is said to possess those who engage in cannibalism, turning them into monstrous, insatiable beings driven by an unending hunger. The creature is described as gaunt and emancipated, with skin stretched tight over its bones. They look at you with sunken eyes and a heart cold as ice. The haunting of Black Hollow Mine began during a particularly harsh winter. Supplies ran low, and the isolation from any settlements drove the miners to desperation. One by one, they began to disappear, leaving only bloodied remnants behind. Those who survived told harrowing tales of a creature lurking in the shadows, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. One miner, Samuel Briggs, kept a journal detailing the events. His final entries reveal a descent into madness. Samuel wrote of a fellow miner, Jacob, who had ventured into the forest to find food with a few others. After a few weeks, Jacob returned alone. When asked what happened, Jacob said they were pushed by starvation till they succumbed to the primal urge and devoured their fallen comrades one by one, until he was the only one left. At first, the miners were relieved to see Jacob return, but something was off. Jacob was still gone, his clothes tattered, and his eyes had a feverish intensity. He spoke little of what he had encountered in the forest, only muttering about the cold and the hunger. Over the following days, Jacob grew increasingly withdrawn, his behavior erratic. He would disappear for hours, only to return with a vacant stare, his hands trembling. Then, the disappearances began. It started with small things. Tools went missing, supplies vanished. The miners brushed it off as the work of scavenging animals, or forgetfulness brought on by the harsh conditions. But soon, men began to disappear. First, it was John Harris, a burly miner known for his strength. He went to check on one of the deeper mine shafts and never returned. Search parties found no trace of him, only a bloodied pickaxe near the mine's entrance. Next was Thomas Mitchell, a quiet man who kept to himself. He was on night watch when he vanished. His coat was found torn and bloodied, draped over a rock at the edge of the forest. Fear spread through the camp like a wildfire. Men spoke in hushed tones about a creature stalking them, a beast that moved unseen through the darkness. Jacob's changes became hard to ignore. His skin stretched tight over his bones, his eyes sunken and hollow. He spoke of an insatiable hunger gnawing at his very soul. One night, Samuel awoke to find Jacob gnawing at the flesh of a dead miner, his eyes glowing with a monstrous light. The transformation was complete. Jacob had become the Wendigo. The remaining miners attempted to capture Jacob, but he had transformed, his strength unnatural, his speed unmatched. He spoke in a guttural voice, cursing them, claiming that the Wendigo had taken hold of his soul. In the chaos, the miners managed to trap Jacob in one of the deepest shafts in the mine, sealing it shut and leaving him to his fate. However, the terror did not end there. The miners reported hearing Jacob's screams echoing through the tunnels, growing louder each night. The temperature within the mine plummeted, and an overwhelming sense of dread permeated the air. Several miners fled, abandoning their claims, while others succumbed to the same madness that had taken Jacob. Years later, the mine was abandoned, the entrance sealed with heavy iron gates. Locals spoke of hearing eerie wails on cold, windless nights, and seeing a gaunt figure lurking near the entrance. The legend of the Wendigo persisted, a cautionary tale of greed, isolation, and the consequences of succumbing to the darkness within. In the dense ancient forest of Eastern Europe, there exists a creature known only to the bravest and most unfortunate souls. The Leshy, a forest guardian and master of disguise, is a being shrouded in mystery and fear. Legends say it can alter its size from as small as a blade of grass to as towering as the highest trees. It is neither man nor beast, but something entirely different, an entity tied to the very essence of the forest it inhabits. One crisp autumn evening, a young woodcutter named Ivan ventured deep into the forest. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. As he worked, the light began to fade, and an eerie stillness settled over the woods. Ivan had heard the old tales about the Leshy, but dismissed them as mere superstition. As he swung his axe, a whisper echoed through the trees, almost like a sigh. Ivan paused, listening intently. The whispers grew louder, as if calling his name. He looked around, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Determined to finish his work, he continued chopping wood, but the feeling of being watched gnawed at him. Suddenly, the forest seemed to come alive. Shadows of the trees danced around him and seemed to shift, closing in. Panic set in as Ivan realized he was no longer alone. He turned to leave, but found his path blocked by a figure, tall and indistinct, as if it was part of the forest itself. The Leshy stood before him, eyes gleaming like emeralds in the dim light. Its form was ever-changing, a blur of leaves, bark, and mist. Ivan felt a cold chill run down his spine as the creature spoke in a voice that echoed through the woods.
You have trespassed on sacred ground. Now you must give tribute.
Desperate to escape, Ivan pleaded for his life, offering anything the Leshy desired. The creature seemed to consider his words, its eyes narrowing. Finally, it spoke again.
Leave this forest and never return. Spread word of my existence so others may know to respect the woods.
Ivan nodded frantically, promising to obey. The Leshy stepped aside, and the trees parted, revealing a clear path. Ivan ran without looking back, the creature's gaze burning into his mind. True to his word, Ivan spread the tale of the Leshy, warning all who would listen. The villagers heeded his warning, avoiding the deep forest where the guardian roamed. To this day, the legend of the Leshy endures, a reminder of the ancient, untamed power that lies within the heart of the forest. In the heart of the Pacific Northwest, where the trees grow tall and the fog hangs low, there lies a forest steeped in mystery and legend. The local tribe spoke of a creature known as the Dark Watcher, a shadowy figure that roams the woods. Our story begins with Emma, an avid hiker and nature photographer, who decided to explore a remote section of the forest that few dared tread. Equipped with her camera and confidence, Emma set off early one gray morning, the forest shrouded in silence. As she ventured deeper into the woods, the light dimmed, and a stillness settled around her. The birds, which had been chirping merrily at the forest's edge, were now silent. Emma felt a strange sensation, as if she was being watched. Dismissing it as nerves, she continued on, her eyes scanning the forest for the perfect shot. Hours passed, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Emma paused to catch her breath, her heart pounding not from exertion, but from a growing sense of dread. She set up her camera, hoping to capture the beauty of the forest, but as she peered through the lens, she saw something that made her blood run cold. In the distance, just beyond the reach of her camera, stood a tall, shadowy figure. It was indistinct, blending with the fog and the dark trees. Emma blinked, and it was gone. She lowered her camera, her breath coming in short gasps. Deciding it was best to leave, she packed her gear and started back the way she came. The forest had changed. The path she had taken seemed to twist and turn in a way she didn't recognize. The trees loomed taller, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Panic set in as Emma realized she was lost. The feeling of being watched was now almost palpable, and every rustle of leaves sent her heart racing. As dusk approached, Emma stumbled upon a clearing with an old, dilapidated cabin at its center. Desperate for shelter, she approached with caution, her flashlight barely cutting through the growing darkness. The cabin door creaked open, revealing a room covered in dust and cobwebs. Emma stepped inside, hoping to find something, anything that could help her find her way back. She found a faded journal on an old table, its pages yellow with age. Flipping through it, she read the words of a man named Daniel, who once lived in the cabin. His entries spoke of the Dark Watcher, a creature that haunted the forest, watching, waiting, and sometimes taking those that ventured too far. Emma's breath caught as she read the final entry. "I can feel it watching me. It knows I am here. The Dark Watcher will come for me tonight." A sudden noise from outside made Emma drop the journal. The hair on the back of her neck stood up as she heard footsteps approaching the cabin. She backed away, her flashlight trembling in her hand. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. A shadow fell across the threshold. Summoning her courage, Emma pointed her flashlight at the door, revealing the tall, shadowy figure of the Dark Watcher. Its eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers, and it seemed to meld with the darkness around it. Emma stood frozen, unable to move or scream. The Dark Watcher stepped inside, its presence filling the room with an oppressive silence. It raised a hand, and Emma felt an overwhelming sense of calm wash over her. The creature spoke, its voice a whisper that echoed in her mind.
"You do not belong here."
With those words, the darkness seemed to envelop Emma, and she felt herself being lifted, carried through the forest at an impossible speed. When she finally regained her senses, she was at the edge of the forest, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. Emma didn't speak of her encounter much. but the experience haunted her dreams. She never returned to that forest, and her once fearless spirit was forever marked by the gaze of the Dark Watcher. The legend lives on, a warning to those who dare venture too deep into the unknown woods. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Stay vigilant. The unknown is always closer than you think.